The Russia-Ukraine war is no exception in an interconnected world where global events have ripple effects that touch all our lives. Will the Russia-Ukraine war increase our wealth? Stay tuned to discover which industry it is and how you can leverage this knowledge. A year ago, Russia invaded Ukraine after months of conflict. Hence, numerous families were compelled to relocate to protect themselves, and thousands of people perished. Expectedly, the West strongly condemned Russia's actions in Ukraine, and many nations imposed punishing sanctions on Moscow. So more than 2,700 restrictions have been imposed on Russia, freezing around $300 billion in its gold and foreign exchange holdings. Additionally, the US and its allies embargoed Russian oil, which caused crude oil prices to soar to all-time highs in recent months. In other words, the conflict not only caused a social breakdown, but also affected all of the world's main economies. India was also affected by the knock-on impact. According to outside indicators, the stock market fell, inflation reached record highs, the rupee fell against the dollar, foreign exchange reserves were depleted, and more. So this was the second huge setback following the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, not just for India, but for the entire world economy. It's interesting to note that while some events in the slowly healing world unfolded as expected, there are also a few unexpected developments. Beyond the hardship and humanitarian disaster brought on by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, slower development and higher prices will impact the world economy. There are three basic avenues through which impacts will move. One is increased inflation due to increasing prices for necessities like food and electricity, which will erode the purchasing power of incomes and reduce demand. Second is a historic increase in refugee movements that will strain neighbouring economies, which will have to deal with the disrupted supply chains, remittances, and trade. Finally, lower asset values will lead to investor uncertainty and lower company confidence, tightening financial conditions, and perhaps causing capital outflows for emerging markets. Russia and Ukraine are major commodity producers, and disruptions have caused global prices to soar, especially oil and natural gas. Moreover, food costs have jumped, with wheat, for which Ukraine and Russia make up 0% of global exports, reaching a record. So what does this mean for the people in Ukraine? Will they have to wait for inflation to slow down stock upon necessities? Or will that just be a dream? Anyway, the situation in the country worsened after the war, and let's hope everything gets back to normal. Additionally, countries with direct trade, tourist and financial exposures will face extra pressure from global spillovers. Although some exporters such as those in the Middle East and Africa might benefit from higher prices, economies that rely on oil imports will see greater fiscal and trade deficits and more inflation pressure. In other countries, including Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, the Caucasus and Central Asia, steeper price hikes for food and gasoline could lead to further unrest, while food insecurity is projected to worsen in some areas of Africa and the Middle East. Hence, in the long run, a war might radically disrupt the geopolitical and economic structure of the world if commerce in energy shifts, supply lines are reconfigured, payment networks are disintegrated, and governments reconsider their reserve currency holdings. Moreover, risks of economic fragmentation are further increased by rising geopolitical friction, particularly in trade and technology. Do you know that Russia got richer after the war with Ukraine? Is it possible to become rich by invading a country? What might be the strategies employed by Russia? Well, let's see. According to Swiss banking giant UBS's annual global wealth report, Russians increased their wealth by a staggering $600 billion last year, despite the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, while the US and Europe lost trillions of dollars. In 2022, there were 408,000 millionaires in Russia, up over 56,000 from the previous year, where the dominant 54 400 500 almost wet net worth pop into fun 50 millions in fortunes. Despite its February invasion of Ukraine, which resulted in Western sanctions that caused Russia's economy to contract and caused a decline in equities listed in Moscow, the country's wealth increased. Although UBS acknowledged that wealth trends in Russia are difficult to determine at this time, it pointed out the country is one of a selected group which had grown richer in 2017. Russian exports on the commodity may be one of the reasons for the country's rising riches. According to Refinitiv statistics, the price of barrel of benchmark Urals crude increased by roughly $7 last year. Moreover, according to figures issued by the Commerce Ministry, India's imports from Russia increased by double to $20.45 billion during the April to July period of FY24, driven by rising fertilizer and crude oil imports. While this is the case in Russia, at the same time, the US lost more than $6 trillion. The bank reported that even though the US continued to account for more than 50% of the world's ultra-high net worth individuals, there was also 1 million fewer American millionaires by the end of 2022. UBS research said that American wealth loss was the first break in a remarkable sequence of gains, dating back to the global financial crisis. The report's findings, however, revealed that the losses were noticeably more pronounced at America's wealthiest levels. Moreover, due to solid consumer spending and a healthy labour market, the US economy remained resilient last year. But a significant stock market sell-off hurt rich investors, while huge layoffs hit white-collar employees. According to Forbes Russia, the rich people in the country increased their wealth by $152 billion over the previous year due to heavy prices of natural resources and fortunes they experienced after the start of the Ukraine war. The Russian version of Forbes said that 110 Russians could enter the list of billionaires. Since the 2022 list was first revealed, there has been an increase of 22 from the previous year, and their combined fortune increased from $353 billion to $505 billion. Moreover, 5 millionaires who gave up their Russian citizenship were co-founders of JetBrains, Sergei Dmitriev and Valentin Kibyatov, Timur Turlov, creator of Freedom Finance, and DST Global founder Yuri Milner, according to Forbes. According to Forbes, apocalyptic predictions about the Russian economy were also a factor in last year's rating results, noting that the combined net worth of Russia's billionaires was $606 billion in 2021, before the start of the war. When Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered forces into Ukraine in February 24 last year as retaliation for the war, the West imposed the harshest sanctions in modern history on Russia's economy and some of its wealthiest citizens. Putin asserted that the West was trying to destroy Russia, and he repeatedly boasted that Western sanctions had not succeeded in destroying the Russian economy or even stopping imports of luxury goods from the West, much less imports of crucial components. Furthermore, under the weight of Western sanctions, Russia's economy contracted by 2.1% in 2022, but it could still export oil, metals, and other natural resources to markets, particularly in China, India, and the Middle East. Moreover, the International Monetary Fund increased its projection of Russian growth in 2023 from 0.3% to 0.7%, but cut its forecast for 2024 from 2.1% to 1.3% because it is anticipated that labour shortages and the migration of Western corporations would hurt the nation's economy. Do you know that Vladimir Putin is the second richest person in Russia with a net worth of $23.7 billion? Moreover, he is a largest shareholder in Nornickel, the world's greatest producer of refined nickel and palladium. According to Forbes, last year, Vladimir Lizin, the owner of the steelmaker NLMK, was the richest man in Russia. However, he came in third on the list with a net worth of $22.1 billion. Privatizing transactions frequently helped the Russians to enter the ranks of the ultra-wealthy, which resulted in the curse of millions of Russians living in poverty. However, under the control of Putin, some original rulers like Mikhail Khodorkovsky and Boris Berezovsky lost control of their wealth. These assets subsequently came under the management of state companies, sometimes led by former spies. Russian billionaires who made their money in the snack, grocery, chemical, construction and pharmaceutical industries are among those on Forbes' list of newly added Russian names, indicating that domestic demand in Russia has remained strong despite the sanctions. So that's it in today's video. In today's global economy, geopolitical conflicts' ripple effects can be unpredictable and far-reaching. As we've delved into the intricacies of the Russia-Ukraine war, its potential implications on global wealth have become more apparent. But what does this mean for you, the individual? Will there be winners and losers, and can nations truly profit in the aftermath of such tumultuous event? If you found this discussion insightful, don't forget to hit that like button. We're eager to know your thoughts on this topic, so please let us know in the comments below. And if you haven't already, consider subscribing to our channel to stay updated and more thought-provoking content. Until next time, stay informed and engaged!